I guess partly because I do have somewhat of an interest in these concerns, I am going to, against my better sense of judgment here, respond to John Paul Dorn's persistent badgering me here. He has some video up called Professoranton's Parasite, and okay, again, I don't know why I'm being put on a pedestal and why I'm being told that I need to be the person who gives him the advice that he so needs. But at any rate, I think well, it's an interesting issue or a question. Okay, first off, I think that as much as I am very sympathetic to all of the concerns about economic, and I face these concerns. I think people think that professors are these privileged elite. Get a clue. You don't know anything about the middle class. Modern professors are very middle class. Many of them are lower middle class. The number of people who are PhDs or who graduate school dropouts or who really struggle to land a job and then have lots of student loans, professors don't make that much money. So there's something very odd. Uh, I'm not in Bill Gates' billionaire pledge group, although that's an interesting case. Okay, so let's back up. I think part of the problem is, yes, I think there are serious economic inequality issues in the U.S., and the foreclosure deal is a major problem. If the WikiLeaks thing does come out and reveal that Bank of America was complicit in knowledgeable dealing of dubious loans, it may well create a class action lawsuit that collapses the economy. I mean, I think that the worst case scenario is we'll have to see. There have been horrible natural disasters and just economic disasters from greed and from other forms of shallowness. I think the question, though, is we need to back up and see it in a broader context, right? Many people in the globe, on the globe, and throughout history, they've never known any of the conveniences that even the poorest of people in the U.S. are take to be sort of standard of living. Flushing the toilet, electricity, clean water, just basic needs around the globe aren't being met. So I think the problem is it's so much more global. John Paul Dorn makes it seem like the big tragedy is that there's not enough shiny cars kicking out from the automobile industry and that the malls are now empty. Oh, the tragedy of the empty malls. Oh boy. I mean, it's really kind of disgusting the way that the age of convenience and comfort and ease and affluence is struggling with its first world woes and problems. Um, there is something, yeah, called too much of anything is bad. Yeah, you can have too much of a good thing. I do think there is an age again of comfort, ease, convenience. We live in the epidemic of diabetes, obesity epidemic. That is, there are so many people who, it's partly due to bad diet, but it's also due to abundance and due to sedentary lifestyles. I think, so yes, do I think there is a significant global problem and both international and national problem of social justice, and do we need to redress this? Yes. Now, it's odd that a person who calls me out and wants to call hope a parasite, it sounds like you're remaining hopeful. And I guess I am remaining hopeful as well. Now, it depends on what we mean by hope, though. See, hope is very funny. First, parasite of hope is an odd expression because I'm not sure what the host is. What exactly is this host that is feeding upon the hope, hope? So hope is a parasite upon what host? Okay, so it's me. It sounded like you were kind of in your video imagining that there are these people that one could go to who would give the advice, and those are the people who we're supposed to blame if they can't come up with it. I mean, come on, isn't that? I mean, is that what it is? But let's go back. I think there's even more. The thing that I would recommend to people. This is the Stoic philosophy of Seneca. If people haven't ever read this, this is one you must keep your appointment with. But you want to read the chapters on tranquility of mind, on the shortness of life, and on providence. I think Seneca, maybe better than anyone, would sort of force the issue of what are you going to mean by hope? Is your idea of hope, is it a personal hope? Is it a public hope? Is it a technological hope or a hope in science to bring about, I don't know, affluence for everyone? What is the hope? See, I'm not sure what kind of hope you're asking for people to have. An impossible hope like Cadillacs for everyone? I mean, it sounds almost like that's sort of lurking in, maybe in the people who are hearing what you're saying. Now, maybe you weren't saying that, but in the concern over the empty mall, that to me is, my hope is not the malls will be filled and that more cars for everyone. I don't think that's the hope. I think the question of what ought one hope for? How about hope for the courage to need little? How about hope for the strength to accept life's injustices and hardships while nonetheless striving to do one's best to alleviate unnecessary suffering, the various forms of injustice? I do think the Bill Gates, the 40 billionaires who are getting together and trying to spread their wealth around and give their money, does this give me a glimmer of hope? Again, economically, perhaps. If I have a hope, it's a hope in the radical transformation of human consciousness. There's a beautiful part in Walker Percy's book. It's called The Message in the Bottle: How Queer Man Is, How Queer Language Is, and What One Has to Do with the Other. And I'll see if I can put links to those two books in this video. But, Walker Percy talks about what he calls the loss of sovereignty in the human. And the loss of sovereignty is when the person, when they show up in the world and they see the world almost like it's a museum, or it's something that's there independent of them, and they no longer feel the right or the prerogative to have a sovereign relationship to their world. And by that I mean to claim to know it, to experience, to create in it, but instead they're like detached, I don't know, they're detached viewers. They're on a tour of the world, and what they're going to do is spectate and consume it. And people have become kind of consumer spectators rather than, and they see this as the highest estate to which a human can aspire. Yeah, your highest estate will be when you're able to buy the expensive things, the fancy things, the things that give comfort and ease and convenience, and you will know that you have achieved something. No, that's so degenerate, right? I think the hope is that people will see the bankruptcy of petty consumer capitalism. And it's not to critique monetary capitalism, like as a philosophy, but it's the degenerate ways in which people think they're going to be happy by being provided for. That's the problem. And my hope is that one day people will wake up and they will see. And when I say people, this is a little shout out here to Despoof, who seems unable to understand. When I say people, when I'm talking about humans, for the most part, we're talking in very broad strokes, and we mean those people who are here, modern Westerners who are watching, who are likely to hear this video, who are watching YouTubes, we're talking about this condition which has become a pervasive condition in the modern Westernized world. Okay, at any rate, I think the issue is that people will wake up and they will discover that it's about being a sovereign person. It's about becoming a thinker, an artist, a creator, a philosopher. It's about finding purpose in in giving back to the world, to other people. I mean, I think part of the reason that I'm responding to John Paul's video here is John Paul Dorn's video is because of the few videos that he sent to me where he's tried to pester me into responding, this at least had a little bit of substance. I think it was all wrong, though. I mean, and he's misquoted me now twice. The line is, and it was a Gandhi line, it's be the change you want to see. That was the line. And the be the change you want to see is meant to tell people you're responsible. You are responsible for envisioning what the world ought to be and then putting it into place. Otherwise, it turns into a dogmatic program of social orchestration or social admonishments. I think that's not what I'm after. I'm not after a program to somehow bring about social equality for all. I think if that means economic equality where all people are entitled to a shiny Cadillac, I think that's gone ridiculous. That's not what we're after. We're after a basic amount of health care and at least minimum substance for the globe. For the globe. Now, does that mean that gasoline in the U.S. may well skyrocket into the $5 a gallon range? For me, as cruel as it is, I think that that's just in a global world. I think there are people who are not realizing the utter privilege and the affluence that America has had. We've had, and this is, this statistic is outdated, but for a long time we had less than a tenth of the world's population and gobbled up over a third of the world's resources. It's unjust. It's unjust. So the thought of, again, what is to be hoped for? If I think of what is to be hoped for, it's a transformation of human consciousness. It's a radical change in the way people understand themselves as part of the earth, as they come to accept their own death. They come to accept the humble lot of the struggle for meaning by way of thought and relation and conversation and narrative and artistic creations, but not of accumulated goods, not of being a consumer.